Daniel had always considered his farmland sacred ground. The 3,200 acres weren't just soil and crops. They were memories of his father's calloused hands, his mother's laughter echoing in the fields during harvest, and countless seasons of sweat and sacrifice. Every morning, Daniel would walk the edge of his property, the dew still fresh on the grass, feeling connected to the generations before him. But one morning, something felt different. As he approached the southern pasture, he stopped dead in his tracks. Bright orange for sale signs were planted across the fields like grave markers. At first, he thought it was some kind of cruel prank. But then he saw real estate agents, stepping out of SUVs, pointing toward the land as if it was already theirs. His heart dropped. A wave of anger hit him as he learned the truth. The HOA from a nearby subdivision had filed fraudulent paperwork, claiming portions of his land as their community property. They were trying to sell his family legacy right out from under him. When Daniel confronted Linda, the smug HOA president, he expected denial, maybe even an apology. Instead, she smiled with a cold arrogance that made his blood boil. "You weren't using the land properly," she said dismissively, flipping through papers as if his heritage was just numbers on a page. "We'll put it to better use. Golf courses, luxury homes, parks, it's progress." Daniel's fists tightened at his sides. He tried to speak calmly, but his voice trembled. "This land has been in my family for over 100 years. You have no right, no authority to touch it." Linda just shrugged. "The paperwork's already moving. You can complain if you like, but it won't stop what's coming." That single moment ignited something deep inside Daniel. The disbelief turned into fury, and the fury hardened into resolve. If the HOA thought they could erase his father's legacy with signatures and smirks, they were about to learn how wrong they were. Weeks later, Daniel stood at the edge of his own fields, watching strangers stroll across the farmland he had worked so hard to preserve. Developers in expensive suits made notes on clipboards, pointing toward hills and valleys as if they were sketching playgrounds on blank paper. They didn't see the land for what it was. They only saw dollar signs. A slick realtor in high heels laughed loudly, calling out to a group of buyers, "This will be the crown jewel of our new luxury development." Daniel felt sick to his stomach. Each word stabbed him like a knife. These were the same acres where his father had taught him to plow, where he'd buried his old hunting dog beneath the oak tree, where every inch told a story. And yet, in the eyes of these strangers, it was already sold. His family's land had been reduced to a sales pitch. Standing there, Daniel swore under his breath. If they wanted a fight, they would get one. Daniel rushed to his family attorney, Mr. Whitaker, a sharp old man who had handled land disputes for decades. When Daniel dropped the fraudulent deeds on his desk, Whitaker's eyes narrowed. "This isn't just shady paperwork," he muttered, flipping through page after page. "This is criminal fraud. They filed false claims and they're trying to push them through fast enough that you can't respond." For hours, they studied every line, every forged signature, every twisted clause. Then Whitaker leaned back, tapping his pen against the desk with a slow grin. "Daniel, they've made a mistake. Do you remember your father buying up some foreclosed homes years ago inside their subdivision?" Daniel's eyes widened as the memory came back. His father had bought several small properties when the housing market dipped, renting them out quietly. They were still in Daniel's name. "You're not just an outsider," Whitaker said. "You're an HOA member. Legally, you have the same rights, and more leverage than you realize." The fire in Daniel's chest roared hotter. He wasn't powerless after all. The very next week, Daniel walked into the HOA meeting. The board members froze as he entered, his boots heavy on their polished tile floor. He sat at the table, calm but unyielding, dropping a stack of legal documents in front of him. "Since I'm a member here," he said, his voice steady, I thought it was time I attended one of these little gatherings. The smug smiles evaporated. Linda's lips twitched as she tried to maintain control. You don't belong here, she hissed. Oh, but I do, Daniel replied, sliding proof of his ownership across the table. You see, I legally own multiple homes inside your subdivision, which means everything you've done, every fraudulent filing, every shady sale, it's now my business. The room went silent. For the first time, the HOA realized the farmer they thought they could crush had just stepped into their world, armed with both truth and law. The battle moved to court. Daniel sat with Whitaker facing down the HOA board, their lawyers armed with binders full of lies. Linda strutted in with her usual arrogance, convinced her influence would tip the scales. But the trial unraveled quickly. Whitaker shredded their fraudulent deeds piece by piece, exposing contradictions and forged signatures. Witnesses stumbled under cross-examination. When Daniel took the stand, his heartfelt testimony about his family's legacy drew the attention of everyone in the room, even the judge. By the time the gavel struck, the decision was clear. The farmland was legally his, untouched, and the HOA's fraudulent actions opened them to lawsuits and penalties. Linda's face turned pale, her once commanding voice reduced to silence. For Daniel, winning the farmland back wasn't enough. The HOA had tried to destroy him, and now it was time for consequences. Using his rights as a subdivision homeowner, he began examining the HOA's finances. What he found was worse than he imagined: unpaid debts, missing funds, and violations that gave him legal grounds to seize properties through liens and foreclosures. One by one, the very board members who had mocked him began receiving notices. Their unpaid dues and shady dealings had caught up with them. And the buyer? Daniel. Legally, officially, and without a hint of fraud. He bought out their homes, fair and square. Neighbors watched in stunned silence as moving trucks rolled in. The once arrogant HOA leaders, people who thought they could bully anyone, were forced to pack their lives into boxes and leave the very subdivision they had controlled with iron fists. Daniel didn't gloat. He didn't yell. He simply stood tall, arms crossed, watching as justice unfolded. The whispers spread quickly. The farmer won. The HOA is gone. And with every passing day, Daniel's quiet victory grew louder in the community's memory. Daniel returned to his farmland, the 3,200 acres stretching endlessly under the golden sunset. The oak tree, the rolling hills, the fertile soil, it was all still his. But now, he also held quiet control over the subdivision that had tried to rob him. He didn't destroy it. He managed it fairly, turning it into a place where people could actually live in peace without tyranny. His father's land was safe, and the HOA's greed had destroyed only themselves. As he walked the fields one evening, the wind carrying the scent of harvest, Daniel smiled. Justice hadn't just protected his legacy, it had made it stronger than ever.